Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another PropSpotter episode. PropSpotter, the smarter way home. As you can see here, I'm focused on the east coast of Australia. It's my personal favourite and where I like buying. Shout out to Perth though for getting the love and attention from time to time, but for now, and in today's episode, we're focusing on somewhere a little different. Oftentimes I come across and have conversations with investors who are chasing yield. Yield is particularly important in your cash flow journey because yield can help make the difference between whether you hold on to a property for longer while waiting for capital growth or have to let it go due to cash flow constraints in your own personal income. Customers looking for, or clients or people looking for a yield of 5% or thereabouts with today's interest rates can remain close to neutrally geared, if not a little negatively geared. This pales in comparison to other places like Sydney or Melbourne where you would only get yields of 2 to 3.5%. In today's episode, we'll be focusing on the town where I bought my first investment property in 2015 for $285,000. I'll show you the investment property quickly, I'll talk about what it's done, but then we'll cover off whether or not Mildura still holds value today. So let's start off with Mildura. Mildura is a suburb in regional Victoria with a population of about 55,000 people. It's divided in two, in a sense, with the main road Deakin Avenue, or Sturt Highway, crossing right in the middle of it. The main CBD, if you want to call it that, of Mildura is located here, right at the top, very close to the Murray River. If you're wealthy in Mildura, you'll have a house by the dock, right here on Dockside Drive. But for all of us, you'll either have a house on the east side or the west side. Now, a few things to note. The west side is big on housing commission. So anything east of Etiwanda Avenue over here is very big on housing commission. A street from back in the day, and I know it is still quite largely housing commission, to avoid is Hornsey Park. Practically a large chunk of the street is housing commission, and still is and will continue to be. The west side though is much more owner occupied. I'm not saying there is no housing commission there, but there is certainly less of it. The west side is more desirable for owner occupiers, and a lot of the professionals in Mildura live along 11th Street and 6th Street in various houses dotted around here. The newer houses, as you can see, are further towards the back of the west side of Mildura, and the older, more aged houses closer to the CBD on streets like Cherry Avenue and the likes of it. Now, my particular property is here on, I've got to get my bearings straight, on the corner of 8th Street and Dyer Avenue, which looks like it's here. And this was my first purchase back in 2015. I didn't know much about property, and I wanted to get something nice and shiny. Certainly not something I would do today. In fact, you can see the for sale sold sign from May 2015 on the screen, and so it looks like Google Street View is about 10 years behind. This is the property I bought 10 years ago for $285,000. It is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1-car garage villa, if you'd call it that. It sits on just shy of 300 square meters of land, as you can see by this back fence, and was tenanted out for $440 a week. That rent actually decreased post my purchase down to $380 or $400 from memory, and has slowly worked its way back up and crossed it over the years. While this purchase was good back then, if I knew the things I know today, my approach would have been slightly different. So now let's zoom out and take a look at Mildura as a whole. Mildura is a great place to live. I have been there plenty of times over the years, but the most important part about Mildura is to ensure that you get your property in a desirable, tenantable area. Now, there isn't, if you are east of Etiwanda Avenue, I'm not saying you won't be able to find tenants. You will probably have to lower your price in order to get good tenants. On the west side, however, you will most likely find that you will have tenants competing for your property all day long. So now let's have a quick look at what's sold recently in Mildura and try and back calculate the yields of these properties too. Yields are fairly, I missed the H tag setting. Mildura, where the median is currently 488,000 and the yield is 4.89%. So the average median house is acquired for 488 and can be rented out for $460 a week. Prices in Mildura always go up, but they take their own sweet time in doing so. As you can see here, in 2015, the median in Mildura was sitting at about $242,000. Today, the median sits at $488,000. The median rent, much the same, sitting at $280 back in 2015, and today sitting at $460. It has an ERSAD score of 2 and a renter to owner ratio of 37%. There are very few listings on the market, 0.3%, and building approvals also very low. The days on market sits at 32, and the vacancy rate, while historically low, has actually racked up over the years. When I first purchased 10 years ago, we were looking at a 1% vacancy rate, but over time, with new builds coming onto the market, that has crossed 3.5% and has now dropped to, it looks like it's stabilizing back at the 2% mark. The whole period in Mildura is touching 10 years, which is very good, but the most important thing about Mildura is the affordability index. In Mildura, the median household can afford to own a house in just 28 years, below the recommended 30-year horizon. This is an amazing outcome and a great sign for investors looking to get into the Mildura market. Now let's have a look at some properties that recently sold in Mildura, where I'm just skipping through to one that looks investment gradable. There you go, 34 Beatty Crescent, Mildura. Now, this is a house on 766 square meters of land, and it looks to be in a tenantable condition, obviously without its own quirks and a further due diligence. A property like this in Mildura, it sold for $547,500, would net you a rent of about $520 to $560 a week. Let's look at another example before moving to the sales. Here's where I was talking about west of Etiwanda Avenue, or in Etiwanda Avenue itself, you may see significant differences in price. Here is a house that sold for $360,000 just this month. This house, while it looks reasonable inside, will fetch you a slightly higher yield and could rent for about $400 to $420 a week. They may even tell you in the ads. However, you may deal with less than desirable tenants, or you could get lucky and find great tenants at a lower rental amount, but the riffraff on the street may not be something you're comfortable with. Overall, Mildura is a great suburb, and had I had my time again, I would have bought houses on larger contents of land, larger blocks of land, instead of that townhouse I purchased, and I would have purchased multiple of them. Over time, or as of current, my property is yielding me around 8.7% on my initial purchase price from 10 years ago, and I've paid off a large chunk of the loan too. That really helps when you're going along the property journey and gives you optionality as you go down the path. For those looking to make similar investments, consider PropSpotter, the smarter way home. And ensure you like, follow, and subscribe.